GW spirit I know and love to see. That is what I'm talking about. Thank you guys all for being here tonight at George Washington University. Let's make some noise. Let's get this thing started. God bless all of you, and God bless the United States of America.
Who are you?
My name is Charlie Kirk, and I love America.
Why are you here?
Because I love talking with people I disagree with.
What have you done for your country?
Started an organization that's now on 1,000+ campuses to save the greatest culture and country ever to exist. I go around universities and have challenging conversations because that's what is so important to our country, to find our disagreements respectfully. I love talking to people I disagree with. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens.
I don't agree with you on a lot of stuff, but I really respect, and I think you don't agree with me on a lot of stuff, but I really respect that you'll have a dialogue. How do you think we get more people that can argue like on both sides of the aisle?
I think this event is a great example of it, right? I think that this event is, we need to have differing opinions. We need to have people that don't share the same worldview and see which one is better and try to find common bond. You should have your own discussions like this every day. You should try to model it and try to have, back and forth, and that's what makes the country strong and great. Civil dialogue.
Political education was not just through the rise of President Trump, but also the rise of Charlie Kirk. Yeah. Watching Charlie from a distance was so inspiring to me as a young conservative woman. I got to know him personally when I decided to run for Congress, and he was a tremendous supporter and friend.
Your generation is living at a crossroads. You are living in one of the most defining moments in American history, and we are all witnessing in real time the battle that is raging for the soul of your generation.
Please welcome White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt and CEO and Chair of TPUSA, Erika Kirk.
Hello. This is a great turnout.
Hello, GW.
This is awesome. So we were talking backstage for a little bit. You don't look pregnant.
I feel it, girl. Yeah. 9 months pregnant today.
9 months.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
So
let's hope that I don't have to go to GW Hospital tonight.
Right. I hope so too. We were reminiscing backstage of how when I was pregnant, I was like 190 some pounds, and Charlie kept bringing me, he'd be like, "You want a hot fudge sundae tonight, don't you?" And I was like, "I actually do." He's like, "I'll come back, I'll go get one." And he just kept bringing all these different treats. Every night he'd come home from work, and that's how I was very fat and happy when I was pregnant. And you look amazing.
That's what husbands are for during pregnancy. And there has been no shortage of ice cream in our house either. So
they live vicariously through it all. So share with us how you met Charlie. I love hearing these stories of how people, their favorite memory or how they met him or what they carry with them of Charlie.
Yeah. So I was first introduced to Charlie, as you know, during my congressional campaign in 2022. I ran for Congress up in New Hampshire, which is my home state. We have some Granite Staters. Hi, guys. The first in the nation primary state. That's how I was introduced to politics. I came to D.C. I worked in President Trump's White House in the first term, started as an intern. And then, unfortunately, Joe Biden was installed as President of the United States. So I had to choose a different job. And I went over to Capitol Hill, and I was a communications director for former Congresswoman, soon to be former Elise Stefanik. And she actually really encouraged and inspired me to run for office. So I said, heck yeah, let's do it. And I launched my congressional campaign. And Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA were the only organization in the political world that supported me. The entire establishment in the city were with my opponent in the primary, but I think Charlie loved that I was a young person who was stepping up to the plate, and he and Tyler reached out, flew me out to Arizona, met them at the headquarters, and then they said, we're on board fully, and they truly were throughout the entire primary. We met at the investor retreat in Arizona. They introduced me to all of these MAGA Patriot donors who contributed to my campaign. And I'll never forget it because Charlie gave me his word that he would support me, and he did all the way through, not just through that congressional run in the primary, and then in the general election when I did lose to the Democrat candidate. But God closed that door but opened another, which led me now to the White House podium. And Charlie was one of the first people the night that President Trump appointed me to this role that I'm in to congratulate me and say how proud he was. So I'll never forget that, and he's amazing.
How many of you that are students want to run for office one day? By a raise of hands.
Some hands. Don't be shy. We need more.
Yes. So my question is for these individuals and even others too, what is the process of that? Like, do you find an application? What was the stepping stone for you for all of it? I just want bare bone basics starting from day one and onward.
Yeah. It's not an easy process. Building a campaign is like building a business. Mm-hmm. You really have to start from the ground up. I was grateful to have worked for a congresswoman who was able to give me some guidance and sort of point me in the right direction. But you have to hire staff. You have to really depend on volunteers. And really, the very first campaign event that I did in New Hampshire, my dad brought me to it. He was my driver and my body man and my campaign manager that day. And we just showed up to a local Republican committee event in New Hampshire, and I walked in and said, hey, I'm Karoline Leavitt. I was born and raised here. I worked in the Trump White House. I'm back home. I want to run for Congress. And everybody looked at me like I was crazy. But one event led to the next. And that's what running for office really is. That's what public service really is. It's gritty, hard work. Our campaign team knocked on more than 70,000 doors in that race, just in the primary alone, all across New Hampshire, all across the district, just earning one vote at a time. You have to be gritty and just put together a team. And I was grateful to have a lot of support from everyday patriots in New Hampshire who joined the fight with us, and then support from people like Charlie at the national level that really helped amplify the campaign. And it sort of just snowballed into this amazing experience, which, again, didn't fully work out. I'm obviously not a member of Congress now, but I think this job is, frankly, a lot more fun. So
I totally agree. So what was the process like to be the White House press secretary? Because I remember when Charlie was in Palm Beach, when they were all putting together the admin, he loved it because it was as if his moment to be a football coach, of just quarterbacking who's going to go where in the admin. So what was the process like for you? Did you have people calling you? Did you have people throwing your name into the mix? And then did you just wake up one day and see a news article about it? What was the process?
So there really wasn't a process. So I worked as the national press secretary on the president's campaign. Mm-hmm. And I fell into that role after the loss of my congressional race. So that's a piece of advice I would give to the young people here. When a door closes, don't worry, because a new one is opening, and it's going to lead you to exactly where you need to be. So just take advantage of every opportunity in the moment and know that God has a plan, and He's going to forge your steps ahead and get you to where you want to go. Thank you. It's just the truth. And so I was running for Congress, lost the race, got a call from a friend who was working for President Trump's campaign that he had just launched in November 2022. And said, hey, the super PAC for President Trump, MAGA Inc., is looking for a spokeswoman. Do you want to come join? And I said, heck yeah. So I joined the super PAC as his spokeswoman. And then months later, when the campaign really started to rev up, Susie Wiles called and offered me the job as the campaign spokesperson, which I took willingly and wholeheartedly. She's my boss to this day, and she is amazing. And so I served with the president throughout the whole campaign, all of the trials, literally and figuratively speaking, the trials in courtrooms and rallies all around the country. And then he won the election. As you know well, Erika, and your husband played a huge role in that. And so after we won and we knew we were going to the White House, I thought, I hope I'll get a job. I don't know if I will. You know, the president made a couple funny comments to me on the campaign, like, if we win, you're coming with me, right? And I said, of course I will, sir. And then about a week after the election, we were on the phone about something, the president and me, just chit-chatting. And it was the most anticlimactic thing ever. He goes, oh, by the way, you know you're going to be the White House press secretary, right? And I said, oh, okay. And he said, so about that other thing, what do you think about that? What should we do? What should we say? And that was it. That's how I got the job. So there was no pomp and circumstance. It just, he just said it, and here we are. True Donald Trump fashion.
Right. What do you feel is the best thing about working for the Trump administration and the White House currently?
There's so many things I love about this job. For me, working with the press, as we like to call it, the fake news media, and they really are the fake news media. I see some cameras back there. I don't know if we welcomed anyone from the fake news. I'd be happy to take their questions if we did. But for me, the best part of the job is working for a president who is so transparent. Like, what you guys hear from President Trump and see from him on social media and on TV is exactly what we hear and see from him behind the scenes. Let me just assure you.
He's very real.
He is very real. He keeps it real. You saw it yesterday at the Easter lunch.
I saw it yesterday on full display. Yes.
Like, what you see is what you get. He is so authentic, which for me as his spokesperson makes my job easy, because when I walk in there and I say, sir, this story is coming out, truth, what do you want me to say? He just lays it on the table. There's no guessing, there's no questioning, there's no spin. It's just, it is what it is with him. And so as his spokeswoman, I'm very grateful for that, because I saw my predecessor in this role have a bit of a hard time, I think. And I think it's because she wasn't able to communicate with her boss in a very open and transparent way. And so the president's accessibility and transparency, not just to me and the rest of the West Wing staff, but to you, the American people, and to the news media, is so refreshing. And everything he says is exactly how he feels. There's no guessing. And he's honest and authentic about how he believes, and it makes my job much easier. And that's one of the things I love most about the job. Also, we never know what you're going to get when you walk into the White House these days. Every day is an adventure, for sure.
Is there anything that keeps you up at night with this job?
The fact that my boss is up all night and probably going to call at any hour.
Because he sleeps very, very little.
Very little.
Yeah.
Like maybe 4 hours a night. It's crazy. I'm a third his age and I can't keep up. I tell him that all the time. I think probably what keeps me up at night is I have a tendency not to sleep as well in this job, because there's just so much going on all the time. Breaking news, you never know what you're going to get when you wake up, whether it's the middle of the night or first thing in the morning. And I have all of the fake news media apps on my phone, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and I'll make the mistake of being awake at 3 a.m. and reading through some of the stories, and then my brain's going.
Awake.
Yeah.
You're awake. Your adrenaline's going.
I can't go back, yeah. No, my adrenaline's going, and my team knows. If you ask anyone who works for me, I see my assistant in the front row, she's smirking, because they'll wake up to the group chat, and I send texts between the hours of like 2 and 4 a.m. every night. And I'm like, we need to call this reporter in the morning. This is not true. We need to correct this, put this statement in this story. So it's just constant. It's a 24/7 news cycle we live in, and we're on the front lines of that at the White House every day.
Do you feel that's the most challenging aspect of your job, is just trying to keep up with the news cycle at times?
For sure. It's never ending. After this event, I'll go look at my phone and probably have 40 texts 10 missed calls, all on different topics that I'll have to go sort through and figure out and call Secretary Rubio or call Secretary Hegseth and try to get to the bottom of what's about to be reported and make sure that it's factual. So it's a never-ending process and challenge that we have with the media today. And it's just the digital age that we live in. It's the way that it is.
Is there anything that you feel needs to be either better explained or, because here's the thing is that we are not in all of the meetings. We're not in all of the briefing sessions. We don't really fully see as the average American what is going on behind the scenes in closed doors. So we only hear what the media tells us. Is there anything that students or just average American citizen should look at differently or pay attention to differently or even shift their perspective on something a little bit more differently?
Well, you said something, Erika, that's really important, which is everyday Americans, you do depend on the news sources that you read to give you the information that you need to make decisions in your life. Economic news, political news, obviously it informs the electorate, it informs how people vote. And we have, unfortunately, an overwhelmingly biased and liberal media in this country. If you look at, I love the Media Busters organization. They do surveys week to week about the coverage on the cable channels in this country and how they're approaching their stories and their coverage of President Trump. And it is always in the 90s, 90% or more negative against the president and our policies. And you have to imagine the vast majority of the country is consuming that. And the president says it all the time. It's miraculous that he won nearly 80 million votes in the last election. It shows that people like you, many of the people in this room with those MAGA hats on, you see through the fake news and you really search for the truth. And I see that firsthand every day. The process that the fake news goes through to write stories, it's really just such a low level of journalistic integrity. I mean, they will find anyone and call them a source familiar with the White House, and then they'll just write what that person said, like it's the truth, like it's actually happening in our meetings, like it's actually being said behind closed doors. And I read so many stories every day that are just completely baseless. Things that were allegedly said that never were said. And sometimes they don't even come to the White House for comment. That's the craziest part, and that's my biggest pet peeve. It's like,
mine too.
You're writing this story with all these sources that you claim know what they're talking about, and you didn't even check with the people who are actually there, who will dispute it or at least give you the accurate information. And we deal with this. Our team at the White House receives about 200 to 300 press inquiries a day from outlets across the country and the world. And every single one that comes in usually has a biased perspective that we have to sort through and run down the facts. And you can imagine it's a very arduous process. So again, a piece of advice, do not believe everything you read. If you showed up willingly to this event tonight, you probably already don't, which is why you're a supporter of Turning Point and all the great work that Charlie did and Erika continues to do, because you want truth in our media landscape today, and we need more of it.
And how do you navigate knowing what's true and what's not? Because what I've been noticing is that a lot of these, especially independent journalists, they pedestal their sources above the actual individual or organization that they're talking about. How can students be able to delineate what is true, what is not? Is there a filter that you run news through yourself where you're like, pause, let's really think about this and break it down?
There unfortunately isn't just an easy solution to know what's factual and what's true. The best advice I could give is to take everything you read with a grain of salt. Nothing you really see, don't take it as gospel until you look at other places. You know, just because one influencer says something online based on one source doesn't mean it's real. And that is true of, you know, the legacy outlets in this country, the New York Times, Washington Post. I read it all. I mean, that's how I start my day every day. I read the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, front to back. It pains me, but I need to know what they're saying, right? Because that really drives the news cycle of the day that we have to combat, but then also on, online engagement and what's happening on X and in other places in the digital world is important to understand, because oftentimes, as you know, what starts on X as a rumor then becomes a legacy media narrative. So you have to kind of get ahead of those things before they really spiral into something that's just a complete fallacy. So my advice would be to encourage everyone in this room to try to be the most well-read person in every room that you're in. That was a piece of advice one of my predecessors, Dana Perino, gave to me before I took this job. She said, you always want to be the most well-read person in the room. And I try to be every day. But Donald Trump always is. That man does not miss a story, let me tell you. He's always reading the papers and watching the TV. He doesn't miss anything anyone says in the whole world. I don't know how he does it and consumes it all. And it's a lot. And, you guys are busy, right? You're students, you're working, you're in school, you want to have fun, you want to live lives. You can't consume every piece of news. But before you get really hot and bothered about something, or maybe angry, or even really encouraged by something, check other sources and then use your best judgment to sort of balance what the truth is. And unfortunately, that's just the way it has to be done.
And when you have that heavy intake of the press and you're reading all the stories, like you said, as a Christian, how do you guard your heart and mind when you read all of these from all walks of life, all different media types? How do you guard your mind and your heart from letting it penetrate and just really upset you or throw your whole day or just mess with even the internal narrative that you guys have in the admin?
Through prayer and faith. It's the only way to just cover yourself in prayer and in faith. And, faith gives you such perspective that even the worst story or the worst news cycle is just a moment. And it's passing. This too shall pass. I think seen videos, my team and I always pray before every briefing. That's a crucial step in our process as a team to prepare before we go out into the briefing room, into the lion's den, and go up against, journalists who obviously are trying to trip me up. That's the nature of their questioning. And some of them, not all of them. Some of them are good people and I think really want honest, factual answers. Not all. But it's through prayer and just faith that there's something so much bigger than what we're doing in this moment and on this day. But it's very easy to feel drowned by it all because it's heavy stuff we're dealing with. And it's policies that are impacting our country and the world. And so there are days that are harder than others, but I think without faith, you couldn't do it.
And when I last saw you, I was so excited to hear, because on the way out, you had shared with me that your team specifically started a Bible study. Are there that to me makes my heart so happy to know that is happening within the White House. Are there other groups within the admin that after Charlie, everything happened on 9/10. Are there other groups within the admin that also have started their own little Bible study groups?
Members of the cabinet have started Bible studies. One of the most beautiful moments I've witnessed in this job was prior to the cameras coming into a cabinet meeting in the cabinet room. The president always sort of has private conversation with the cabinet and checks in and asks them, how's everyone doing? Is there anything you need from me? And it's sort of that private moment before the cameras roll in. You guys have seen these advertised 3-hour-long cabinet meetings that we hold about once or twice a month. But they do have that private talk. And there was a day in which Secretary Turner prompted a prayer over the president and over the rest of the cabinet. And I had the honor of just standing in the corner of the room for when the president wanted the media to come in and witness that moment with the president of the United States, the vice president of the United States, and the entire cabinet with their heads bowed in that beautiful cabinet room praying together. And I took a video of it on my phone, and I will save it forever because it was the most powerful people in our country and the most powerful man in the world humbling themselves and just praying over each other for protection and safety and continued wisdom. And that was one of the best moments I've witnessed. But we have started a Bible study. It is all women. Men are welcome too if they want. Robert, I see you over there. He's my colleague. He can come if he wants. White House male staff are welcome, but it's been all ladies thus far. And it's been wonderful. Tuesday morning, 7:45 in the Roosevelt Room. And a colleague of mine, Dr. Heidi Overton, she's a big mind in the MAHA movement. She's incredibly brilliant, and she leads the study. And it's all young women that are working in the West Wing and just need that moment of prayer before we get started with our very busy days.
I love that. So including that, what is so far your favorite memory in this role?
That's a hard question.
I know there's so many. You can name a few. You don't have to name just one.
You know, I think the best memories I've had thus far are those with my family, with my husband and our baby, Nico, who's going to be 2 this summer. And all of the holidays. The White House is such a special and beautiful place. Christmas time at the White House, it's decked out with trees and lights and just beauty. Those Christmas parties are such a joy. The Easter egg roll is a fun event. It's coming up on Monday. My son last year was a little baby. Now he'll be toddling around on the South Lawn on Monday. And I have the pleasure of reading to the children. So, you know, those moments where I'm able to bring my family in and just enjoy how special of a place the White House is, that will go down as my favorite. Those will be the memories I remember forever.
I love that. Transferring now to college. When you were a college student, what was something that you held conviction-wise that allowed you to be courageous and bold on campus being a conservative that you can share with our students?
Free speech. When I was at St. Anselm College in New Hampshire, I realized I was one of the very few conservatives in my classes very quickly. And it would have been really easy, as you all know in this room, if you're part of your Turning Point chapter here on GW, to just shut up and be silent and, you know, not share how you really feel, because as a conservative on a college campus today in America, you will be the ideological minority. It's just a fact. But we're changing that. I think we're changing that in a big way, thanks to Charlie and everything that you guys are doing. But you have to just speak freely and have the courage to be bold. And I wrote some editorials in the school newspaper that my liberal professors probably didn't like very much. But it allowed me to really, for the first time, I think, in my life, know that like my voice mattered. Because after writing those newspaper articles, there were more students that were coming up to me saying, I agree with you. I'm just afraid to say it. I agree with you. I see some people shaking their heads who have had similar experiences. Courage is contagious. And not enough people have it. And if you have it, you'll inspire others to be courageous and to speak their mind and to speak freely, or maybe even change their mind. That's the whole purpose of this organization. And so I think just the courage to speak freely and be bold in your conviction is just tremendously important. And that's what Turning Point is all about.
And what about those students that feel afraid to share their convictions or even have courage going up against professors that they know will grade them differently? You know, Charlie used to get asked the question all the time, should I change my paper that I'm writing so that my professor gives me a better grade, or should I just stick to what I know in my heart to be right and just write that out, even though I get a lesser grade for it?
You just have to do it. Just do it. One grade versus standing up for what you know to be true and righteous will lead you to so many greater paths, better friends, real friendships, better job opportunities. It will expand doors that you didn't even know existed when you choose to stand up for what you believe, rather than just silencing yourself because you want one good grade on one paper. You know, you have no idea what God will do in your life until you really start to be bold and courageous and open those doors, and He'll continue to open them for you.
After graduation, how did you know you wanted to get into the political landscape, and how did you go about that route?
Well, I actually applied to be a White House intern. And is anyone in here a White House intern or want to be a White House intern? We just opened the application, whitehouse.gov/intern. Go apply. It's a great experience. Someone's nodding their head over there. Go for it. I'll get your name after. We'll put in a good recommendation. No, it's it was an amazing experience. And I just applied. You know, I didn't have any political connections. You know, my parents are small business owners up in New Hampshire. Zero political experience, but my college was political just for being in New Hampshire, the first in the nation primary state. And all of you who go here have that advantage. You are at George Washington University. You are in the heart of our nation's capital. You are exactly where you need to be if politics is what you want to do. So God bless you all, and congratulations for being here, because you're already a step ahead of many of your peers at your age who might want to be involved in politics just by the nature of being in this city and up so close and personal. You could walk to the White House tonight and be there in 5 minutes. You can walk to Capitol Hill. It might take a little longer, but you can get there soon too. And you have this firsthand experience to history, which I didn't have. I grew up in New Hampshire and went to school there, but a colleague of mine at school, she was a White House intern under President Obama. And I remember her talking about it in class, and I thought, that sounds really cool. Like, I want to be a White House intern, so I just went online and applied. And God blessed me with that opportunity, which then led to so many doors opening after that, working in the White House full time, running for Congress, and then, of course, all the political opportunities since, and now this job today. And little did I know when I hit send on that application that I was even going to be accepted. Never thought it would lead me to this job. So take the risk and just apply. Apply for jobs you don't think you are qualified for or will get. Even if you have no political connections, it does not matter. You can get there with hard work and with putting yourself forward. That's what it takes, that first step to just say, I want to do this, I'm going to try. You have to try, or else you'll never see if you can succeed.
And as you are in this role, how do you juggle family, career, faith all together? What is your roadmap for that?
I don't know if there is a roadmap.
I know there's not, but
it's something
I'm
still working on every day. No, being a mother is the best job in the world. I love my job as White House press secretary, but nothing compares to the job of being a mom, as you know. And I have become a mother of one, and now soon two, in the midst of the craziness of my career. And it's a lot of prioritization. You learn very quickly when you have a family that your family, you know, in my case, my husband and my son, come above anything else in life. That's just what happens. Aside from God, of course, God, your husband, your children, your family, your friends, and work. And I try to prioritize my life in that order. And it just means that when I'm at work, I try to be as present as I can and as best as I can. And when I get home for our bedtime routine with my son every night, which I prioritize making it home for that I'm as present as I can be as his mother and soaking up every waking second that I'm not at the office with him and with my husband. And just balancing that act, it's a tricky one. And there are days that are longer and days that are better. But ultimately, it's just about that balance and that list of priorities you have to make in order to make it work. And a support system, as you know, it takes a village. I have an amazing mother who's here. I have an amazing husband and friends and family who are always willing to help. And that really, I'm grateful for that. And I know not everyone has that. But it really is helpful with this job and being a mom. But I would tell all the women in the audience tonight, you can do both. You absolutely can. You may not want to, and that's okay too, but you can make it work. It just takes, again, prioritizing your time and leaning on those around you, having a great partner, a great husband to bear your children with, and to just take it day by day.
I know how that is. Charlie in dad mode was one of my favorite. Charlie in dad mode and vacation mode were two of like my favorite versions among all the other versions that I was obsessed with, still am. But he was very intentional about bedtime with the kids. There'd be even times where he was in a meeting and he'd look at his phone and be like, I gotta go. And he'd come straight home and he would read. Our daughter, she'd go into the bookshelf and pick out the book for him to read. And it was always some form of a Curious George book. But it's amazing because she would ask him to read the same story 5 times. And it wasn't like, again. he was always so good about, yeah, of course, honey, we can read it again and again. But
I'm glad my kid's not the only one who asks for 5 times the same
story. But you have a point where bedtime is so important. And Charlie even knew, even with honoring the Sabbath, and that intentional quality time with your family is so priceless. And to prioritize that is something that really was able to take him to the next level, which is really special.
And it fuels you to be better at your job when you are able to take that time and be fully present. Like, I find Monday mornings, I'm the most chipper and ready to go in the office, where most people are like, dragging their butts, exhausted. I'm like full of life because I had that weekend family time with my baby and my husband. That's so important. It fuels you. And that's why I tell young women, you can and you should do both, because actually being a mom and having a family and having a job, it gives you the greatest perspective, because you can have the hardest, worst, most stressful day at your job. But when you go home to a beautiful baby and children who are just happy to see you no matter what, it is the most refreshing, beautiful thing. And it gives you the best perspective on life. Like, nothing else matters except for that. Who cares what the Daily Beast wrote today? Who cares what the headlines are? Like, I have an amazing son who just wants to be loved and play trucks and read the same dino book 5 times in a row. And that really gives you the perspective you need, I think, to be successful in your career. And it helps you to be not only a better mother, but also better at your job too.
No, totally. There'll be people that are like, did you see what they're saying about you on X? And I'm like, no, I don't have time. I don't have time. And actually, quite frankly, I really do not care. I am actually really busy right now playing Magna Tiles, and that is way more important.
Changing diapers.
Yes, than hearing the endless onslaught that really is just noise. Exactly. Noise. Is there anything that you can leave with our students, an idea, a strategy, a life goal, anything that you want to share with them to take with them as they go about their day and the rest of the school year? School year is almost over, so even for the seniors, is there anything, remember when you graduated college, was there anything that you held on in your heart of like, now I get to go start my career, or do you go to graduate school? Like, is there anything you want to share with them before they?
Yeah. People always ask me, like, what advice can you give me, young people? And I'm going to give you a piece of advice that is not novel. You've definitely heard it before. It's very simplistic. Work hard. Mm-hmm. I know it sounds so lame, and you're probably like, wow, she couldn't have thought of something better for us, but nothing beats hard work. There is no substitute for it. And be that person that stays at the office later than your boss every single day. Be that person that shows up first to work or to your internship. Be that person that so noticeably works their butt off at every single thing that they do that you can't go unnoticed in whatever opportunity you're in, whether that's school, academia, graduate school, whether any of you go on to serve in our military. People will, thank you. God bless you. Thank you for your service. People notice the hustlers. And now as a boss, with a staff, you notice those who work hard and hustle, and you notice those who don't. And so you never want to be that person. You want to be that person who shows up relentlessly every day with a positive attitude, willing to work hard. And that's going to help get you to wherever you want to go. There's just no substitute for it.
I agree. Charlie used to say, work harder, be better. And he would even give advice saying, if they can't hire you because they don't have the funds to do so, tell them that you'll work for free. And show them your work ethic, show them that you're bought in for the mission, and if you do that properly, you will have a position.
That's right.
For that company, for that organization, for that campaign.
Absolutely. One of my first real jobs, I guess you could say, was at WMUR, Channel 9 News, ABC affiliate in Manchester, New Hampshire. And I was a freshman in college, and this is one television station in New Hampshire, by the way. They're like the big deal up there. And I thought I wanted to be a broadcast journalist at that time. How the tables have turned. And so I called up the news director, Alicia is her name, And I said, I want to work. She's like, who are you? I said, I'm a student at St. A's down the street. I want to work here. I just want to be in a newsroom and see if this is what I want to do for my career. I will literally sweep your floors. And when I said that, she said, I'm not hiring, but I'll hire you. And so I started Saturday night shifts from like 5 p.m. to 11:30, which as a college student, that's a rough time, okay? To be working in a newsroom, as you know, 5 p.m. on a Saturday night. Not ideal, but I took the job. And then it led me to so many other opportunities in college. So yes, Charlie was right about that. And it's age-old advice, but it will never cease to exist because it's just true and it's real.
I didn't realize we're going over, so I still want to get to some questions from the audience. So we can...
We could just chat all night.
Yeah, we can chat all night, or we can start.
Are you guys enjoying this, or is this fun? Okay. You're so quiet.
I know. Before we take any questions, I do have to ask you, because I get this question a lot. What is a Bible verse or a book in the Bible that is, I mean, the whole Bible is my favorite, but what is the one that you sometimes come back to recenter and refocus?
Almost every day. From the book of Psalm 46:5, God is within her. She will not fall. I see some other ladies like that. I want to get that tattooed on my forehead some days because I feel it so deeply.
No regrets.
I won't do that. But that verse is just in my heart, and I recite it multiple times a day. I think about it and recite it to myself out loud and privately. Every time before I take the podium, sometimes when I'm at the podium in the middle of a briefing, I will just repeat that verse in my mind, and it just gives me the fortitude that I need to know that God is with me, and I will not fall physically or mentally or figuratively or literally, and it gives me the strength. It's my favorite verse, hands down.
I love it. All right, let's take some questions from the student. I can't see. Oh, okay, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, I'm Heidi. I'm a student from Georgetown University, and I'm studying journalism. In class, we were talking about how the Trump administration, for the first time ever, officially incorporated content creators and podcasters into the White House press pool. This obviously breaks a century-old tradition at the White House, and I'm personally a big fan of Riley Gaines and her podcasts. I know she does a lot of work with Turning Point and Erika, and it was really great to see her have the opportunity to ask you, Karoline, a question in the press briefing room. So my question for you today, Karoline, is what are the standards you're using to choose which podcaster, which content creator, or which independent journalist gets White House press access? And should we expect to see more of that in the future?
Sure. Well, thank you. And God bless you for studying journalism. We need more real journalists, investigative journalists in this country. So I applaud you for taking up that profession. We decided very early, actually prior to my taking the job, during the transition period between the campaign and the White House, I spoke with, those of us who worked on the president's communication team during the campaign about the need to shake up the White House press corps. And the president did such a phenomenal job in the 2024 race, as you all know, of really owning that non-traditional media lane. He was willing to go places that no other candidate was. Kamala Harris couldn't because she would have word salad herself to death. I don't even think that's a word. I just made it up. But, she was afraid to go on Joe Rogan or Theo Vaughn or some of these other podcasts. And Joe Biden certainly couldn't do it because he wasn't even awake for half the campaign. So President Trump was able to really own and dominate that non-traditional media lane. And so as his press secretary, I thought it would have been a dereliction of my duty serving him if we did not welcome those new media voices into the briefing room. And so we announced it, I think at one of my very first press briefings, that we would be opening the doors to non-traditional media, and we have. And we've been able to have people like Riley Gaines and many other podcasters and content creators and influencers in that seat in the briefing room, and to bring them in and to give them daily access, daily passes. Many of them we see on a daily basis. They cover the White House as full-time jobs now. They have seats on Air Force One. Jack Posobiec joined us in the White House press pool. You can imagine the looks on the CNN hosts' faces when they showed up for the trip with President Trump, and Jack Posobiec was in the press pool, but we love him. And, they have bigger audiences and followings than many of the legacy media journalists do. So they deserve a seat at the table. We feel strongly about that, and we're glad to welcome them. And we don't base it on ideology. I've had liberal commentators and liberal podcast hosts, and I would welcome more in the new media seat. And it's about reaching as many Americans as we can with the president's message. That's what I view the core function of my job as being.
How do they apply for that? How would an independent journalist apply to be able to be a part of the press pool?
So we have it up on our website on whitehouse.gov, or they can email the press team, press@who.eop.gov. And we've credentialed hundreds of new media journalists, and they don't have to come every day, but you can show up on a briefing day. We'll give you a press pass. You have to be vetted by Secret Service and go through the whole process just like any other legacy journalist has. And we abide by those guidelines. But then once you're in, you're in. And if you show up and you're willing to pay to come on those trips, we welcome them to do that and to travel with the president and to be firsthand of history and to report on that to their audiences. And it's been a lot of fun. We've been able to have fun with it and meet so many amazing people who have real voices and real audiences out there.
I love it. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paul. I'm a student here at GW. You are obviously part of this administration and one that is always under the spotlight, and you, of course, are as press secretary. How do you balance it all? And you're about to be a mother too, so what's your day-to-day life like?
The day-to-day. People ask me that. My assistant wants me to do a TikTok on a day in the life. Do we think I should do that?
I think you should. Because it's different every day.
It is different every day. But I wake up very early. I read the news front to back. If my son wakes up before I leave, he's been sleeping in lately. He's being a lazy boy. I know. I'm like, good for you, buddy.
My kids are up early.
Yeah, no, he's been
They're ready
sleeping
to go.
late. So sometimes I miss him in the mornings. But if he's up before I leave, I get my time in with him and get him up and get him his bottle and start feeding him breakfast. And then I get myself ready and get out the door early. Our mornings in the West Wing do start early. And then I work, and then I make it home for bedtime. And that's my day after day after day. And you never know what a day in the West Wing, especially working for President Trump, will bring. And that's the beauty of the job. That's what makes it fun, also what makes it very challenging. But they're long days, Monday through Friday, and then sometimes Saturdays and Sundays are crazy too, depending on what's happening in the news and what the president has going on in his schedule and in his world. But it's a jam-packed day, daily at the White House.
Do you have to travel with him every time that he goes?
Not every time, no, thankfully. I have a great team and staff who will take some of the weekend trips to Mar-a-Lago. But, the bigger trips, the foreign travel, I've been so blessed to join him all around the world. We literally flew around the globe last year when we went to Asia. And the pilot on Air Force One actually announced when we were finally landing at D.C., congratulations, you have just flown on Air Force One around the entire globe. And we were all so tired, and we were like, yeah, we feel it. That was a crazy trip. But to go to South Korea and Malaysia and Japan and all of these amazing places has been a real honor. And to meet heads of state and to be part of that is probably, other than the Easter egg roll, my other favorite memory on this job.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you both for talking to us tonight. My name is Mokul. I'm a student at GW as well. As you both know, there's a lot of conservative students across the country who are attending mainly liberal universities where we face censorship, event disruption, grading bias, and just a lack of respect from peers, mentors, and the university itself. And it can be incredibly draining and isolating for students who might not be vocal about their political beliefs or who aren't part of a conservative community on campus. And I speak from experience. And I wanted to ask, what advice do you guys have for students who might not fit in ideologically with their own community or who just want to fight for free speech, core American values, and there's just more diversity in higher education viewpoint in our nation's capital?
I'll just say from the experience of seeing my husband do it, he was so courageous, like you talked about going to the Lion's Den, that he gave his life for free speech. I think, and I've said this before, the more that you take light out of dark places, the darker it will get. So I just pray that each and every one of you, especially students, look to my husband as the example to speak with truth and take your freedom of speech from the standpoint of responsibility, of engaging in discourse and dialogue, but doing it in a way where you are obviously standing for what you believe in, but also giving the people who don't agree with you an opportunity to share why. Because when you listen, then you can respond better rather than just, being like, oh, we don't agree on anything. You might actually agree on more than you think, but I just want to encourage you guys to continue to watch my husband's videos and see how he engaged. And even what I loved the most is seeing the evolution of him being on campus. At first, he would hold the microphone while the other person across the table was speaking. And as time went on, he put the microphone down to actually listen and then be able to engage appropriately from there, and really just doing what even Jesus did, which was ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. But again, I just hope that my husband continues to be an inspiration to all of you of how to properly engage with those that you do not agree with.
And I would say, yes. Charlie was the best at that. He was the best at that, being able to stand a foot away from someone who is ardently disagreeing with you, sometimes in vile ways, with disgusting rhetoric, but still being able to maintain his composure and respect for the other side of the debate, no matter the issue, was something that I think we can all continue to learn from. And you're already taking your own advice. I mean, the fact that you're here and you're standing up there with the spotlight on you and the microphone in your hand asking a question at an event like this, where I'm sure there's many people on this campus who will not appreciate that all of you showed up tonight. The fact that you're just here and you're involved, you're taking your own advice, whether you know it or not. So God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This will be the last question.
One more after this.
Hi, I'm Danielle, and I'm from Club America, and I'm a junior in high school. I know that Charlie was incredibly effective at communicating conservative values to young men, but many women my age seem to be moving in the opposite direction regarding marriage and career. So what do you think needs to change to make the messaging more compelling to women my generation?
That's a good question, Erika.
From the
While
standpoint,
I sit here and think.
From the standpoint of telling them career versus family?
Yeah.
Well, from my experience, before I met Charlie, I did have my own company, but I built it in a way where once I met Charlie and then we got married and had a family, it could run on its own. So I could focus on being a wife and being with my kids. And that was my priority. That was everything to me. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all. There's single mothers out there. There's people that have different circumstances. I think you really need to pray about where the Lord is taking you. And if you do have a husband that's supportive and you are blessed to be a stay-at-home mom, that's just as much of a massive role and a job as being a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You are the guardian of your home, and raising your children is the most precious blessing that you could have as a woman, because as a woman, you were made to be a mother. And so I just would implore anyone who is struggling with that option to really pray, and you and your husband are able to make that decision together as what's best for your family and your children. Okay, and then real quick, is there anything that we can be praying? I can't see.
One more?
You want to take one more?
Yeah,
okay,
let's
we'll
do
take
it.
one more. Sorry.
Please.
We're just really running over, so that's the only way. Go ahead.
Loudly. My name is Ryan Caldwell. I go to GW. My question is about the Save America Act.
Yes.
Who do not
I'm glad you're calling it. It is the Save America Act,
Amen.
not the Save Act.
that requires various forms of ID and proofs of citizenship in order to prevent voter fraud. However, voter fraud is incredibly rare. According to the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative database, by the way, there have only been a few hundred cases of voter fraud since 1982 out of hundreds of millions of votes. Additionally, according to the Brennan Institute of Justice, there are 21.8 million Americans who do not have easy access to proofs of citizenship. So my question to you is it worth it to risk millions of Americans from voting in order to prevent a few hundred cases of voter fraud?
First of all, thank you for the question. No need to boo. It's an honest question. I'm happy to give you an honest answer. First of all, I have not seen the data you provided, so I'd like to go check it myself and make sure that it's actually accurate in the way that you're citing it. And there is certainly much more, I believe, voter fraud in this country, and I'm sure the statistics back it up, than what you cited with one survey. And why are you okay with any voter fraud in the United States of America? We are the greatest country on the face of the earth, and we should have the safest and most secure elections of any country on earth. And it is
transparent.
And transparent. And it is absolutely absurd that voter ID is not the land of the law in this country already. And 89%, 80 to 90%, based on which poll you look at, of Americans in this country support bringing a piece of identification to the polls when you cast a ballot in an American election. And that is all the Save America Act is asking people to do, to prove you're a citizen and to bring an ID to the polls to vote in elections in the greatest country in the history of the planet. And this idea that the Save America Act would disenfranchise anyone is frankly insulting, that Americans aren't smart enough to get the proper identification to go vote and show up to the ballot box. So we should. I will end by saying we absolutely should pass the Save America Act. It's a common sense piece of legislation, and Democrats would be wise to get on board with this, because the only people in the world, except for maybe the gentleman who asked the question, seem to be politicians in this city who don't want voter ID and proof of citizenship in American elections. So I think everybody on Capitol Hill should pass that piece of legislation.
Okay, thank you for your question. Yep. Is there anything that we can be praying for you for, as, you know, obviously you're pregnant, but is there anything specific that we can be praying for you as you go about your day? And
it's so sweet. Pray for the safety of everyone at the White House, myself and the president, of course, and all those who work for him, and our great cabinet who are working so hard in the face of disagreement. I would pray for that. Thank you.
All right. God
Thanks,
bless
Erika.
you guys. Thank you for coming.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.